SkYPEAnxietycenter.com.
Hey, Jim, I'm probably, if this is the 11th month, I'm probably 21 months into intensive recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember.
Yep.
I've listened to some of those tapes and I'm like, wow, girl.
Yeah, you've been at it.
Well, just even on the video, I'm like, I can hear it in my voice. I'm just so stimulated, but I'm glad to report, I'm getting a reduction in symptoms.
Good for you.
I mean, slowly getting a reduction in symptoms.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
I don't know if this is appropriate to talk about, so if it isn't, just let me know. Coming out of this, I knew I came from an abusive childhood. I guess I just didn't realize how bad it was until I got with Stacy.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize the impact it was having on me.
Yeah.
And still having on me.
It's quite common, because
it?
Well, that's our normal. We don't know there's anything different. Yeah, we just think that's all normal. Well, we know there's something wrong at times, but we just don't realize how bad it is. So that's a good realization. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when he told me, that I score, it's hard. And it's so hard for me to talk about this. That's why I probably just never did.
Yeah, totally.
It was really bad growing up, and this time of year is really, really hard on me because of some of the abuse, which is too distasteful. I can't talk about it in this kind of a forum. It wouldn't be appropriate, but it was pretty bad.
Oh.
And so this time of year gets pretty rough. And I just was wondering, my little dog, he's got a herniated disc, and he's at the university. They're trying to help him, but what's your advice? And of course the anxiety, it's like, oh my gosh, your symptoms are going to just skyrocket again and you're going to be so bad, and the damn dizziness, the threats.
Yeah.
So what's kind of your advice? My siblings go through it too. My sister had quit drinking and she relapsed, and I mean, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
My brother, my brother that I have guardianship with, he's, their answer to him is they just drug him up to the max. And my other brother, they just gave him some more pills, and he can't hardly get out of bed, but
yeah.
And we all say, frickin' this time, it's just this time of year, but what do you, which I am trying to be gentle with myself. And despite all this, I still am seeing improvement on symptoms. So I'm definitely on the right track. But what would your, I don't know if the abuse that I don't know if that puts me in a, when my mom died, my very first thought, and she died years and years ago, but my very first thought was, thank God she can't hurt me anymore, but she did from the grave. I lost my sister 18 months after that, but what do you how do you get these floods of emotions? And I think for a long time, how I coped was I just ate it away. I just stayed so busy, just drive myself on and push it down,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what I'm sure that's what I did.
And that's what a lot of people do, because that's our safety mechanism kicking in. That's just what we do. We segment out.
Like, I think it's funny, I'm just not a big crier. And when my little dog, I was trying to be brave, I'm not going to spend a bunch of money. I'm not going to dump a bunch of money in my little dog. But then when he got so bad, I totally lost it. My husband's like, we're in the car driving, You know?
Oh,
He's like, whatever, I'll sign the papers, fix the dog, you know,
yeah.
because he just never sees me break down and cry. I'm just not a. One time I had a bad tooth, and they were kind of giving me grief. And my husband, he's like, if she says she hurts, this girl hurts. She's tough. She's as tough as they go.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But I
imagine
think
you
in
are.
some
Yeah.
ways that's been really bad for me relational, because I don't think people around me have any idea to what degree I suffer. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think people have no idea.
They won't. No, that's the thing.
And how could they? I just always pretend, agreeable Marguerite, go along with the flow, take on everybody's problems. Don't make any waves. Don't be any trouble. Don't be any bother, which I'm learning is very, very indicative of children that come from abusive homes. For God's sakes, don't make any waves, Jim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what's coming.
Because you know it's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with what you said earlier. Show yourself compassion. Um, these are difficult times, and they take time to process and work through, especially when we're working at recovery and having to face them and face the reality of what they did to us. Because as I mentioned, a lot of times we come through a really bad situation, we just think that's kind of normal. We think everybody kind of goes to things like that, and we're kind of stunned when we find out, wow, look what I come through. And based on what you've told me, I can only imagine. And I would give you a big hug if I could.
I know you would. I'm going to get over this anxiety disorder. I told you, I'm going to get over this anxiety disorder, and I'm going to come to Canada. I'm going to meet you guys.
Oh, we'll come down there. You don't want to come up here now. It's winter.
Oh, yeah. No, you got to come this
That's
way.
right. Yeah, we'll come to the heat. Yeah.
You can come get your hip done, say hi to me, go back to.
Oh, speaking of hip, I do have a surgery date in January. So, talk about answered prayer. I just want to detract just for a second. We finally got to see the surgeon, and the surgeon said, he said, your hip is real bad, but my waiting list is 2 years. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
He says, but, and maybe I said this in the last conversation, I don't remember, but he said, but I have a colleague who there was a mix-up in his schedule, and he can take clients fairly quickly. So he says, if you don't mind, if you want to, I can transfer you to him, and he will, talk with you. So we talked, and he said, yeah, I can get you in January. So I do have a surgery date coming up, so that's good to know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, glory be to God. I my son was in a very, very serious accident.
Oh no!
And he was. He flipped over and hit a pole, and the kid, when I showed up at the ER, the doctor, he's like, Marguerite, I'm X-raying and CT scanning his whole body. I don't even know where to start. And he was talking, but blood everywhere. And, my boy walked out of that with 40 stitches and 3 staples and some embedded glass. Glory be to God.
When did that happen, Marguerite?
That happened about 3 weeks ago. And here's the crazy thing. Right before that happened, I had a weird feeling I needed to go pray. Mm-hmm. And I went to the church, and I prayed, and I was home for about 30 minutes, and the call came through.
Wow.
Yeah. He just, in fact, I nursed him up, and he got his stitches and staples out a day early, and I was on him though. I was riding him.
All of that on top of this time of year. I mean,
and then my little dog, gosh, dang it. My husband, he's such a tightwad. He grew up Mennonite. He's such a tightwad, and God love him. He just got that, just don't buy anything ever, Yeah. He'd be the guy that they'd find $1 million in his mattress, But I said, Tim, I don't care. I got to fix Max. And I was crying, and Stacy told me, he goes, don't be brave. I guess that was the permission I needed, but I broke down, and we're in the car driving to the university.
Yeah. Well, pets
he's a dachshund. He's a dachshund, and he has a herniated disc. They get that.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Marguerite, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to ask you a question about, you were talking about how a lot of your main symptoms are like gone. And So like your dizziness symptom, like, was that like one of your main symptoms?
Yeah, I had the dizzy back when I started with Jim. Well, I tried to go to therapy for a year and I just didn't really take it serious. And I did take it. I'm not gonna say I didn't take it serious. I just thought I would go once a month for 6 months and be good. I didn't realize I was gonna have to. I guess I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But definitely had the dizziness, definitely had, I think the first 6 months of recovery, I was in bed. I was bedbound, heart racing, dizziness, rashes.
Did you have like,
eye stuff?
Yeah, the vision issues. But like for me, that's like my main symptom. I mean, it wasn't like 2-3 years ago. I had other main symptoms, but it has morphed into my main symptom, and it's
sometimes. And then I spent the first 6 months in bed, and then 9 months I was pretty chair bound.
Yeah, I never gotten like.
And then probably about. And brain zaps. Oh my gosh, those damn.
See, I've never had those. I've never had
brain.
Thought about them.
It's like I had those. I had the eye stuff.
Did you have hearing? Was your hearing?
I still have tinnitus. Still.
What about your hearing? Like, would it become like muffled? Like,
yeah,
like a fishbowl or
yeah.
Like that's part of derealization.
The derealization. I didn't know what that was until you guys told me on the last call.
Yeah,
Stacy would always ask me about it, and I was like, I don't know what that. I just didn't know what it was. But once I heard what, I was like, oh, I had that too. But yeah, the derealization, the personalization, whatever. Feeling like I was gonna pass out. Feeling like the whole world's moving. The dark thoughts, my God, the threatening dark thoughts from hell. That was terrible. That was awful.
You're not on any medication or any kind of withdrawal?
No, when it first, this last month is my fifth year with. I mean, I've had anxiety my whole life, but this last month was my 5th year of pretty intense symptoms, acute anxiety, panic attacks from hell. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Panic attacks take you out. Panic attacks.
I know about those.
But they tried to put me on Zoloft. This was 5 years ago. I went anaphylactic for the 2nd time in my life. And had to go to the hospital and get shot up with all the stuff. So no, I didn't do any drugs.
Now I just wonder if maybe
not against drugs. I mean, Janice, if you gotta pop a little something to get through tomorrow, girl, just do what you gotta do. Just get through it. Just
maybe
get through it.
Is hinged on that Zoloft trial, and then your anaphylactics. Just a thought.
Sorry, Jeff.
Now, what'd you say?
Yeah, Jeff, could you repeat that?
I was just wondering. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering, if any of this stemmed from that Zoloft trial and the anaphylactic reaction.
Oh no, I took one pill and I was in trouble within 15 minutes. It was true anaphylaxis. It was bad. So basically you have the panic attack that never ends for 24 hours straight.
Now this whole state that you've been in has continued since that point?
No, I actually had started with Anxiety Center back then, and I had owned the grocery store here in town, and I closed the grocery store, and took off a year, calmed down, thought, hey, I told my whole family, hey, I'm healed, I'm good, I'm good to go, and I went back to work and crashed and burned hard, which I'm hearing is pretty common, just to relapse yourself because don't deal with the level 2.
Yeah.
Oh,
is that true, Jim? I mean, pretty
absolutely.
common.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun.
So then I had a period where I had pretty low symptoms, and I worked. Of course, they worked me long, hard, and strong, and then COVID hit, and I had deaths in my family, and I just relapsed myself really bad. So January, I remember talking to Jim, January 2021. I'm like, I think I got to quit my job, and Jim's like, you were just basically like, do you think you can get better working? And I was like, I don't think so. Like I was sleeping 2 hours a night, maybe. Diarrhea to the clear. I mean, I just couldn't function. And they still wanted me to work. They still wanted me to pass meds. I just.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. But now, I mean, most days I do pretty good. I go to the store. It's a whole new world for me, Jim, taking it easy on myself. And well, yeah, I mean, like, so today I was like, well, I really like to be on that group therapy call. And then I meet with Stacy later on today. So, I won't really do any housework today. I'll make a light dinner, take a hot bath, listen to my book on tape, and go to bed. I mean, I just really prioritize myself and really, really pace myself, which is super unusual for me.
But good for you. Look at the changes you've made.
Not everyone has liked it, and that's been hard for me to deal with.
Yeah.
No one's liked it, Jim. When you've been when you've been the go-to and the doer, and change that with people, I see why you say people have to have a therapist through boundary setting because they just can't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need that support. You bet.
I've lost every friend I have.
Yeah.
Because I just wasn't good time Marguerite, down for anything.
Yep.
Call me up whenever, tell me all your problems.
Yeah. And with your new boundaries, you'll have friendships on your terms now.
Yeah.
That's what I keep thinking.
Yep. And it's going to take time until you're back to normal health and you're looking for friendships, but you'll be way more selective and way more unwilling to accept lopsided relationships. So while it's hard to lose some of those, it's also hard to realize that they were only with you because they got something from you, which is sometimes hard to take too. But as you move into the healthy place,
that's painful. That adds to the hurt,
Oh yeah, you bet. But the new ones that are coming are going to be far better. Like I look at my relationships now, I love them all, and I put good boundaries on the ones that are unhealthy. But yeah, I'm in a way different place than I was back in my 20s.
Yeah, I remember reading your story, and I could relate to a lot of it. You said you were an emotional sponge.
Oh, terrible.
You were probably the guy everybody went to, and
Yep. Took a lot on board that I shouldn't have. Of course, as you know, because you don't want to tick anybody off.
don't want to make any waves, Jim. Don't want to make any waves. Don't want to get anybody upset.
Yeah.
Might get slapped, hit, punched.
Or worse, yeah.
Starved, denied medical care. Who knows what? And that threat lives with you, even though my mom's been dead for years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's pattern behavior. We know exactly what happened. Those are real life experiences for us. Yeah. And I didn't have the degree that you did, but everybody has their own. And those are real life experiences, and they stay with us. And until we process them differently, they still retain emotional charge. That's why it's so important to work through them to get to that place where the historical, we remember them, but there's no emotional charge anymore.
I mean, setting limits with my husband, with my children.
Yeah.
I basically told my son, I put him in therapy, and I said, here's the deal. You either quit yelling at me or you got to move out.
Yeah. That's a good boundary.
Or when you get 18, you got to move out because I can't, I have to be safe.
Yeah. And you know what? Some people might think that's really harsh and unfair, but you know what? we're preparing children for the real world.
Well, that's true too. That's true too. And he took it pretty good, Jim. He said, "You're right." I said, "You have a terrible temper," and I said, "This temper is going to get you in trouble."
Yeah, I mean, look at that valuable insight right there. That's going to benefit him. And a lot of parents today aren't willing to do that in fear of losing, quote, their friendship with their children. But you're preparing them for the adulthood. They need to hear that stuff from people they can trust, and that does have an impact. So good for you, even though it's hard on you to do those things. It's still the best for them. They're the ones that benefit. Yeah.
You know what? He drives himself to therapy and he works on his stuff. So
there you go. Yeah. Good training. Good job.
My son, Chris, he was complaining about me and my mother and me, how I was a mother or something. And I let him vent for a while. This happened a few years ago. I let him vent for a while. Then I looked him dead in the face and I said, "You're right. I haven't been a perfect mother, but let me tell you, you haven't been a perfect son either. And you always need to remember that." I said, In fact, you've been a pain in the ass. And I feel like I know that that's totally contrary to what we get fed by the media. But I tell you, sometimes people need to get a reality check. I'm a pain in the ass.
Yeah. My wife has a good saying for that. She says when her kids say, "You really didn't treat me very well. You made a lot of mistakes as a parent." And she'll say, "Yeah, I probably did. And I admit them. And you're going to make your own mistakes," because that's exactly what happens.
That's exactly what people, and just like what you were talking to Brianna about, people, what you would do when you had a good night's sleep and a hot meal and emotionally, capable is a whole different cry to what you do when you've been on 12-hour shifts, working codes, watching people die, eat in a hospital, can't pee on a shift, can't drink on a shift, eating the hospital food, got the diarrhea, can't sleep. I mean, what you do is a lot different, in that situation, then. And I mean, my older kids are starting to realize that. They're like, in fact, the son who is it was the PETA, he's like, "Somebody should have told me it would be like this." I said, "It's rough, isn't it? You get the bills coming in and a couple of health problems and kids hanging on you. And I tell you what, it's a whole different world."
Yeah.
And the pace that we're expected to keep in our culture is just killing people.
Yep. It is. Yeah. Pace and the expectations of what families should have and what families should do. I mean, especially how they should be treating their children by having them involved in every sport and having the latest gear. And
Dr. Leaf says that that's child abuse. She said if you understood what was happening to them in the brain neurologically, you'd realize why that's child abuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Children need to be bored and play in the dirt outside.
Yep, they do. Yeah. And a lot of times it's the parents' expectation that drive the children. So, yeah.
And the money, my sister-in-law, who's a physician, they have no money saved. And they have spent every single cent that they could find on dragging these kids to all these different things. And, none of those kids are ever going to be pro athletes or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, the one kid went to a community college.
Yeah.
And they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and for people that can afford it, that's great. But, I think
But I don't know that they can afford it when you don't have anything saved, Jim.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they literally have nothing saved.
Yeah.
My son, my oldest boy, does finances, and he said, "Mom, you would be blown away if you saw people's finances."
Yeah, I would imagine, eh?
I mean, literally, people are 50, 65 years old and have no money saved.
Yeah, wow.
Can I ask a quick question, Marguerite?
Yeah.
What did Carolyn, you're talking about Dr. Carolyn Leaf?
Yeah.
What did she say that was child abuse?
The way we run these kids around nonstop.
Okay, like forcing them to do stuff? Or
No, not necessarily forcing them to do stuff, just making them live this pace. I mean, they go to school 8 to 4 or whatever.
Right.
8 to 3:30, and then they get out of school, and then you instantly start taking them to violin lessons, karate lesson, sports camp. I mean, they have no downtime. They eat cheeseburger McDonald's in the car, and then if they have 2 or 3 of them, they're really busy.
Oh boy!
And everybody's screaming at each other because no uniform's been washed, because mom works, dad works. The house is a mess.
Yeah, different times, hey?
But just growing up in that is not healthy for children.
Yeah.
Then you add the stimulation of the internet and the phone and all that crap.
Oh, no doubt. That gets me wondering, because my daughter, goes to school, and she's on the honor roll, gets straight A's, and then she works. She's only 15, so she can work here in the States. That you can work, or at least my state, she can work 18 hours at a grocery store, and she does every bit of that. And it's a lot on her, but she's tired, but she's not showing any sign of exhaustion. But this is stuff she wants to do. It's like, we're not, and I actually tell her, you do not need to do all this stuff. So you're like opening up a door from, it's like, oh my goodness, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should have her, force her to back off a little bit. Because she doesn't need to work. She wants to do these things. That's an interesting thing I got to look into.
Yeah, she talked about how this driving kids around, all this stuff, and these kids are 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jim, so the grief.
Mm-hmm.
So have compassion on myself and
give yourself, be patient with yourself, do what you think to do in the moment. As you know, there's no right or wrong way to get through it. It's just a matter of trying to process it, keep things in check. Give yourself breaks. Sometimes we have a tendency to dwell on the grief too long. So we want to, grieve, but make sure you give yourself breaks where you get away. And just take it as it comes. There's really no magic way through it other than just to be gentle on yourself.
And you find this is normal, even years, people my age just still, is it that I just never processed all of it, or?
That's it. Don't process it. We lock it away because it's we perceive it as dangerous, so we just lock it away. So as you're working through it and becoming aware of it, and these things become more prevalent, you'll grieve it. But the thing is, again, through this grieving process, you're going to turn it into a historical event. You'll remember it, but it's not going to have an emotional, charge to it. And so that's what you're working towards. So it's not always going to be like this.
Okay. What about the burnout? Just even going to the hospital with my son, the next day he has this throat problem and they're checking into it. But the next day that flared up, so he had to go back to the hospital. I told my husband I absolutely cannot go back to the hospital.
Yeah.
My husband was pretty mad at me. I said, there is no way. I said, I was at the hospital way 4 hours too long.
And that's a good boundary to set.
Even taking my little dog to the doggy hospital.
Well, sure. Like, those are significant events in your life. They're not small stressors. And so I
feel like I have a lot of PTSD from nursing. You have ringside tickets to hell every day.
Yep.
Especially the kind of nurse I was. I was a kidney nurse.
Oh my. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the worst of the worst.
And there's a lot of things that you are processing. I really like the fact that you're putting healthy boundaries in, regardless of how others are responding to them, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to balance in a way that you can manage. And that's really admirable.
I can't even manage myself right now. I can't hear anybody else's crap. I just, and here's the thing, Jim, I feel like it's not good for them to just let them just vent and vent and vent and vent.
Yep.
And 2, I feel like I'm sad to say this, and you can rebuke me, but I feel like so many people don't really want to get well.
Well, it's funny you'd say that, because you're right. Our organization likes to work with people who want to succeed. And that means people are going to be working at it, because if you want to succeed, you'll work at it and you will succeed, because a person can take up a lot of time just complaining, and that doesn't get anybody anywhere. And so, there are people who don't want to succeed for a lot of reasons. don't want to work at it. They've learned, as part of their background factors, they've got learned helplessness, so they don't. So the minute things get tough, they quit. So there's all of that. So you're right. There are those who just, don't want to get better. They just want to vent to someone. And it's healthy for you to set boundaries and limits on that.
I think it's not that they don't want to get better. I honestly think it's because a lot of them get to that hopelessness state or depression state, and they don't have the mental or emotional push anymore. So they just stay in that state because they just don't have it in them. It's up and down so much that that hopelessness is really bad. I mean,
it is, and I remember
I
feeling
agree with that. Yeah.
when I was bedbound. But I'm talking about people that trap you in Walmart, hijack you, hijack you.
Yep.
And then I'm like, well, it sounds to me like you probably need to get with somebody and talk to somebody. It sounds like you need some help. Well, they don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And the conversation is over pretty quick.
Yeah. And that's what I was talking about too.
Start with a lot of it too. A lot of it jumbles up your brain when you don't know really. Where do you actually, like for me, I compartmentalize everything. And so I'm having a hard time with recovery because I have to put it in steps or in like, what do I really need to do? I'm confused. And I tell Stacy that it's like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many steps. I mean, there's so many things, journaling, lowering your stress. There's, meditation and blah, 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 and on and on and on. And that can wear you out. And then that can make you feel like, your brain, okay, there is something wrong with you because you're going to do all this stuff. I mean, what is the right way? Where's the beginning? Where's,
it can be really overwhelming. Yeah. Oh, I remember starting and then you have like so many things to do, like a huge list.
Yeah. So is it just that you just stop and say, look, you know what? I'm just going to just live life. And
yeah, but Janice, you aren't hijacking people at Walmart, barfing all your.
Actually, I don't because I don't talk much. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, these are people. These are people that, and I've. It's been hard for me to admit this, but these are people who they identify their sickness is their identity, and they really aren't interested in a cure. They're really just interested in dumping on somebody.
Yeah,
I mean, in that
they're really not interested in. But here's the thing, no matter how crappy you guys feel, you still showed up for therapy.
Yep.
You still, maybe nobody's going to do therapy 100% perfect.
But just doing therapy is telling my brain that it's broken, that there's something wrong.
But Janice, I mean, you want to get over this crap. That's the thing you talk about the most. You're like,
So what's the easiest? I mean, not easiest.
But there's people that just thrive on drama and their disease,
family members that way,
and their sicknesses and their pills. And my mom was so addicted, and she had and it's so triggering for me to be around those kind of people. I just can't. For my own therapy, I just can't. I mean trust me, I'll be your nurse. You want me to go over nurse? I'll nurse you. But I mean, I
understand that. I had to cut off my brother. I used to talk to him every day, but I had to cut him off because of exactly that. And it was just causing me to really go down a rabbit hole every time I talked to him on the phone because of his issue. So I know what you're talking about. And my sister's the same way.
Yeah. I mean, and Christine, you in February, you were bedbound too. And
like when
you haven't done
about when you were like, housebound and all that. I relate to that because that was me like this time last year.
I'm not saying I did therapy perfect during that time, but I still showed up to my therapy lessons. I did my group therapy. I've read through the anxiety center. I mean, there were a lot of days I was so messed up, I couldn't read the anxiety center, and I just had to give myself a break,
Yeah. And
I had such bad vision problems. I'm like, Jim, why don't you get this on video? Can't you tell I'm hyperstimulated?
Let's just clarify something here too. I mean, look at all of you who have come to these Skype meetings, regardless of how you feel, regardless of the helplessness sometimes in the darkness you feel, but you're still determined to get better. You're still doing the work, like Marguerite said, you're reading and doing that. There are people who feel awful but won't do the work because they're getting something from it. And one thing, for example, a lot of people who come to us have come from a background where they were overindulged. Their parents gave them everything. So the last thing they want to do is get better, so they have to rely on their own resources. So while they're struggling with dysfunctional relationships and codependencies and all that goes with it, they won't do anything to get better because they're afraid of having to stand on their own 2 feet. So that's one thing. Other people don't want to get better because they like the attention they're getting by being sick. Other people don't like to get better because they think when they complain to others and they get their love that way. So there's a lot of reasons why they don't want to get better again. But the people we typically see at our website, and especially those who are in therapy, they're determined. And so there's good examples of where you can feel awful and have all these things in your background, but you're still willing to do the work. And that's a big difference.
And I had to, I'm glad you said that. And I had to let myself, my sister, Janice, she's a prime example. She didn't want to go into treatment because she would have to do housework. It's just like, I got nothing. I'm not going to sit and listen to you constantly venting. You have to do your part too.
Yep.
And I don't even feel like it's good to support that behavior.
Because you enable, right?
Right. Yeah. You're enabling. Yeah. And so, but these lessons, Jim, have been rough for me to learn.
Yes.
Like, I feel bad, like saying there are people that don't want to get well.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just letting them hijack me in Walmart isn't helpful to them either.
And here's the thing. All of you know that you getting well is entirely up to you. You get the information, but you have to apply it because no one's going to fix anxiety for us. That's just this reality. And some people want us to fix them. Give me the 2-paragraph version of how I get better and I'll be good with that. They don't realize that. It's our responsibility to go through and clean up our anxious behavior. That's what we got to do. And so
when I started with Anxiety Center with Stacy, I was kind of the same way. I mean, I didn't realize how much it was going to take. I didn't realize how sick you could get.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like, I'll go to this, once, I only met with them like, once a month or once every 2 weeks. And, I mean, I wasn't engaged. I had to make that decision myself and say, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna full jump with both feet into the program. I read the materials. I got on the group therapy. I once a week I meet with Stacy. In fact, there's been a couple times I've been so bad, Stacy wouldn't give me counseling and got off the phone. But I got stuff written up, contained, everywhere, and learning behavioral. I mean, it's hard work.
And you see why we recommend therapy so much, because people can't overcome anxiety disorder by themselves because they don't understand the scope of the work involved. That's just the reality.
The scope of the work involved. My God.
Yeah. And of course, the more difficult the background, the more work we have to do because there's more harms that come from it. But it's still work. There's still behavioral work that we need someone to help us realize the scope and work through it. That's why we recommend therapy so much.
Just cutting those, even at Walmart or, nobody has my cell phone right now because I just can't have, in fact, I made a mistake and I talked to 2 people last week and it really set my symptoms of, set my symptoms in motion. I mean, getting these forever texts about everything that's wrong with them and on and on. I can't do that right now.
Nope.
I just can't do that right now. I can barely manage myself.
And you can help others when you're through this, but while your body's recovering, you got to give it what it needs. And whatever we do to interfere with that's going to slow us down. That's
and I have
reality.
4 kids. I have a husband. I have a very large home, which I'm thinking wasn't the best idea. That's a lot for me. That's more than, coming from somebody who was bedbound.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, congratulations on your work. You're doing great. You're sticking to it. That certainly demonstrates your quality of character, and it is a lot of work, and you're doing it. So, congratulations. And I love the things that you're doing. Yes, boundaries is hard. Another thing that's hard for anxious people is separating ourselves from the world for a while so we can heal.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what we got to do. That's what's required. And if we do those things, we will get better.
Well, it's just like Jim, I go to great lengths to avoid the news. I do watch YouTube stuff, but I try to just watch like makeup, skincare, benign things,
Yeah.
I do watch some TV, but it's pretty happy ending, benign, the classics. So I go to all these links because I know that stresses me out. But then, like you're saying with level 2 recovery, but then if you have these relationships, you're never going to get better.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting harassed, and just being honest with people. I don't have anything to give right now.
Yeah. And that's important because anxious people are typically compassionate. We want to help because we've been through awful things. We want to help. But if we don't protect our recovery, we're not going to get through that because, we do absorb a lot from other people. And if we don't set limits on it, it just impacts our recovery. So now is the time in recovery to set those limits, protect yourself until you're better. And then you can help on a limited basis, and as long as you're keeping your stress in check and it's not getting too over. So this isn't permanent. It's just until you get better, but it is hard, especially with compassionate people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had patients texting me, wanting me to go to the hospital because they couldn't get their IV in or they couldn't get their Foley in. And I'm bedbound with anxiety, Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, I've given all I gave until I had no more to give, Jim.
Yeah.
And when I crashed and burned, there was nobody to help me.
Yeah. And the thing too
if I wouldn't have got in with anxiety, I probably would have, I don't know what would have happened to me.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is that because you're compassionate people who like crisis will draw to you. Because if you're compassionate, you're giving them that compassionate response and that's what they want, they're going to bring all their crises to you. So you see how that's going to interfere with our own health. So we have to set good limits.
Like I'm bedbound with anxiety. I hadn't talked to one of my nursing friends in years. She got diagnosed with cancer. I was the first one she called.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to be there for people because I do, but Jim, like I said, the reason I'm sick is because I gave all that I had to give.
Yep.
Like I even have some issues with Christianity because of this that I don't totally know how to work through.
Right.
We get this message, help, do, serve.
Yeah.
But what about people like me that are shipwrecked? Horrible symptoms, and literally nobody has been there for me. Nobody.
Yeah,
literally. I'm not even just feeling sorry for myself. I mean, I'm telling you the truth.
Yep.
I'm the same way. Exactly.
Yeah. My wife and I are talking about that very thing this morning, about how the church so in an unhelpful way abandons those who struggle. And I think it's a real shame, but that's the nature of human nature, right?
Can you hear me?
I was gonna say, not even just the church, like just even friends. Like when you have this, it's like people don't really know how to help us, or they don't reach out.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep.
Can y'all hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Janine. And I just wanted to speak to the piece right there about how the church in a lot of areas has let people down. And I have to say that my church, I'm on staff at my church, I'm on leadership, and I'm actually over the women's ministry, and this is what I do full time. And through my recovery, God actually renamed it for me last year and said that this was restoration. Because, like in the process of restoring us all back to the way it was intended to be in the first place before the fall.
Yeah.
yeah, but anyway, I'm really fortunate in the fact that my pastor allows me to use this platform of how I've been growing and what it is that I'm walking away from as far as the anxiety and the lies from the past, from sexual abuse as a child, and just all these things. And so we are being very deliberate at our church. We're actually praying about bringing on therapists as being a part of our church, just because of what I've walked through and what I've been very open about. They see this need within the church of that. It's not just read your Bible more, or you need to have more faith, or you need to pray more. That there is something behind all.
Or there's a demon. That's the other one. Or there's a demon. You have a demon.
Yeah.
It can't be just you're freaking broken. You've been pushed past your ability to cope.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But it's awesome the fact that we do see Jesus's teaching in the New Testament of that he was always telling the disciples, you need to get time to yourself. You need time to refresh.
Well,
you
he
need
sure
time
did.
with the Lord.
Yep.
Yeah, he did. He did exactly.
Yep.
He would disappear among the crowd. He'd be gone because he needed it too much.
Right. And we see, in Matthew where he told them, he said, you've been ministering to these people all day and you haven't even had time to eat yourselves. Let's go away over here. And what he was saying was, get alone with God. And
when I found those scriptures, the one about come away a while and rest.
Yes.
I cried for days because it was in the beginning of my recovery. I cried for days about that. And it's like, God, regardless of what they're teaching from the pulpit, God wants you to rest.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Marguerite, something I would like to point out is if we go to Matthew 26, where Jesus was in the garden and he
has the panic attack from hell. He has the panic attack from hell.
He was asking his friends, come stay with me, pray with me. And we see in there that he was experiencing depression. He was experiencing anxiety, all these things. And if we think of it on the level of the Savior of the world allowed himself to experience that, he was that human, that he experienced those emotions, the emotions which God created in the first place, because emotions are data, right? He experienced all of these things. So I want to speak to you were saying the things that you're experiencing right now, the things you're feeling. And because of what Jesus experienced, you can give yourself a break in this. Because I've had to do the same thing. I've had certain times of the year or certain locations that would just bring up those triggers. And I would beat myself up. You should be past this by now. You should. The whole guilting and all of that. But because of what Jesus experienced, we can give ourselves a break. He didn't deny the fact that we're going to experience these things. But it was through God's grace and his love and, because of his love.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because this is so silly, you guys. I can't believe I'm going to admit this on TV but this is so silly. So I'm at home most of the day by myself, which I need to be right now. I know that I'm grateful that, a lot of people can't quit their jobs or whatever. So I'm grateful to the Lord that I can do that. But I have my jewelry and my beads and I also do these spa days and I have the best skin ever in my whole life. But I'm kind of silly but I've spent quite a bit of money on it, which is very unusual for myself. But so I think that in a way, like, that's kind of God's way of helping me take care of myself, I know it sounds silly, but
there's nothing wrong with indulging for comfort when we need comfort. I mean, Janine, I love what you said. The way I view it is that we want to learn to give ourselves the same grace Jesus would give us.
Yeah.
He doesn't hold us to this great big high standard what we have to soldier on no matter what. He is grace-filled, and that's, I think, the attitude we want to take for others, especially those struggling, and for ourselves when we're going through difficulty. And Janine, I also have to acknowledge you for, moving in your church in this way to help those who are hurting. We have pastors on our team, who are working in their churches, doing the same thing, offering that same support for those who are struggling. Right. We did the same thing in our church. We used to run, when I was younger, when I had energy, we used to run night support groups and things, and education on boundaries and anxiety and things, because our church realized early on that, people are hurting. They need to be supported in their church, not turn away, but turn to them and help them. So it's great that your church is. It's unfortunate that a lot of churches aren't, but hopefully more are getting on board. Yeah.
I think they are. And the goal here is to, be, on staff, we have required reading, and like right now, I'm reading through How People Grow and Boundaries at the same time. Yep. And we want to have a Cloud and Townsend kind of based, therapy here. But, and they're actually also growing our elders and, other people to be able to come alongside people like this, because I had the same experience. It was, just work more. Instead of study to show yourself approved, it was work to show yourself approved. And that really
work more, pray more, serve more.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it all comes back to work, right?
Yeah. And the thing too is, you're struggling with anxiety because you don't have enough faith. I used to hear that. It's like, oh my.
Oh yeah, that's the all time. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had more faith in God, you wouldn't be afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, something
so hurtful. Those comments are so hurtful and so painful. And then people wonder why church attendance is just dwindling. Out of all churches are closing left and right, and it's like people are hurting. I mean, and they're just not getting any support.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's nice that there are churches moving that direction. So that's really good. Yeah.
But I also feel like, in some ways, the great love of the body will run cold. It talks about that. People will be lovers of themselves. I feel like in some ways people don't know how to love one another.
Yeah.
Or themselves.
Like they don't have that skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Bible does mention fear not like 365 times. It's like one for each day. I mean, so evidently he's trying to tell us something. Fear not, fear not, fear not.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But I think people just don't know, like they haven't been shown compassion and love, and they just can't give something away they don't have. Like they don't know. I've been on every spectrum of this with my friends, and I've come up with the fact that I think people don't know how to love each other.
Yeah, we certainly lost the relationship. I think the I generation, instant gratification through your interaction with your device, with a piece of software, has become so prevalent. It's become the I generation where everything is I. And I think we've missed how important the relationship parts are. So, churches can really provide a big service there by being that relationship, and especially being there when people are struggling, and understanding that people are struggling not because they have sin in their lives, which they could have, but because we've come from difficult backgrounds. We have to reprocess a lot of that stuff so we can come out and be the loving people that the church wants us to be. So it's great that churches are moving that direction. It's also great that more is known about anxiety now. Like there's a lot more known about the behavioral aspect, and they're getting rid of all the other stuff. So that's really great. We still have some distance to go. And the other thing I look at here with all of you who are working through this, all of you can be reaching people who are hurting when you're well, educating, supporting, but when you're well. Right, Marguerite?
Jim, I'm going to write that. Actually, Stacy, he does this thing with me. He goes, Marguerite, you're fired. I fired you. You're fired. You're fired by being a caretaker. You're fired.
Yeah, that's right.
I said, what am I supposed to do? Just sit in the house? And he's like, yes, I want you to be bored. I have to tell you, Jim, Stacy had my number from the get-go.
He's a smart guy.
he had me pegged from the get-go. I said, what am I supposed to do? Just be in the house with all my anxious symptoms and everything? Yes.
Where you don't want to be.
What am I going to do all day? He said, you'll figure something out.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, so I'm just supposed, he goes, you need to take, and you've said this before, you need to take a long, he said, this recovery isn't going to be easy and it isn't going to be quick for you.
Yeah.
And you need to take a long break.
Yeah.
Marguerite, I want you to be bored. I'm happy when you tell me you're bored.
Yeah. If you follow his guidance, he'll get you there for sure, because he's seasoned, he's smart, he's compassionate, he's got a heart for people too.
It's so funny though, because I'm such a girly girl, like ultra feminine, like I had a pink car, the house. I mean, ultra feminine, right? And if you know Stacy, he's like he's sports and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but somehow because we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, somehow we make it work, you know?
Yeah.
But I have great skin. I do all these, I buy these, and it's kind of silly. I feel kind of silly, but I have all these like little spa days I make for myself. And I feel kind of, but it's fun for me. It's relaxing for me. I enjoy it, but I do feel kind of, at first I felt kind of silly, but.
That's good. That's good that you're changing that view and valuing the time that we spend nurturing, because nurturing is so important. As Janine was saying, we've lost the nurturing aspect in our society. We've lost the reality that the body can't go as hard as we want to push it. And so by realizing
that was something I said in the beginning of, you asked me one time about how does being from the medical profession, does it help or hinder you?
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it's helped, in some ways it's hurt. But, you talk about the body can only do so much.
Yeah.
Well, I think if people would realize how much medication their doctors are on to get out of bed every day, I think it'd probably shock them.
Yeah.
Because you can't live at that pace.
No.
You can't. I mean, some of these doctors are working 80, 90, 100 hours a week for decades.
Yeah, I know. It's really sad.